Hello one and all, welcome back again. This is another episode of Kerbal Space Program. In this one, I'm going to be finishing off the engines on the starship that's hopefully going to be taking us to Duna, as well as running a quick engine test, just to make sure it doesn't, could destroy itself. So, here's the rocket I'll be using. It's actually quite a simple one. Very similar to the one that took the station core itself up, but scaled up. So we've got the next size up of parts. They are put together in asparagus staging, as you can see. So obviously, rocket goes up, these two outer stages fall off, then these two stages fall off, then the center stage eventually falls off, and we lead up to the payload. Also, I found a good way to stabilize using these shroud decouplers, because they always wobble a hell of a lot. Strut on the top piece, strut on the bottom piece, and then put a strut in between them, and it holds them in place quite well. Anyway, very simple rocket, and the engine itself you'll see once we get to space, so without further ado, let's go to the launch pad. So yeah, like I was saying, taking off, getting into orbit, relatively simple, if you're not some kind of idiot and you actually pay attention to the heat gauges. This time I want to leave a bit more space, because obviously it flew overhead as we were taking off, so let's say around about there. That's probably still too close, but oh well. Anyway, this time we're going to actually get up there. So, without further ado, let's make sure that's all set up, and on we go. So, obviously, to start with, fairly simple. Just making sure that we head straight up, keeping ourselves nice and level. What I generally tend to do is around about the 10-kilometer mark, I start doing my gravity turn. I haven't really seen a very well-defined definition of when specifically to do that, how much to turn by, or anything like that. But the basic gist is, once you get to roughly 10 kilometers, or before or after, it really depends on personal preference. Oh, wobble it a bit. Once you get about that high up, start thinking about turning over in a eastward direction. Oh well. So that's the first set of rockets gone. Trying to keep ourselves relatively level. Anyway, yes, heading in a spinwards direction, usually the best idea. The planet does impart some rotational momentum onto you, so it is easier to get up there that way. Though I will say that if you're wanting to go to the inner planets, actually going west can be quite helpful for getting that little extra boost from the gravity slingshot, sending your way... get back there. Oh, wait, speaking of, here we go, we've passed 12k, I haven't even noticed. I am a total pro, guys, it's okay. I know what I'm doing, honest. Anyway, tipping ourselves over. But today we're just going into orbit, to something that is in itself going spinwards, so obviously that is the direction we would like to go. God damn it, keep it level. And away they go. Explosions. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's probably some international treaties or something that should stop me doing that sort of thing, but nah, well. If they didn't want me shotgunning the entire continent with debris, well, they shouldn't have let me start a space program. So, apoapsis. We want it to be about 100 kilometers. Yeah, we've fallen behind. So in fact what we'll do is we'll leave it at about 75 or so. So, interceptions. Relatively simple, really, when you get right down to it. Oh, there's my little cloud of debris there, slowly expanding. Anyway, relatively simple. It's a little bit counterintuitive. If you want to speed up and catch something that you're lagging behind in your orbit, probably one of the best ways to do it is actually to slow down. Because by slowing down, you lower your orbit. The lower orbit gets round the planet quicker, and therefore you slowly start catching up with your target. Similarly, if your target is behind you, you can speed up, get yourself a wider orbit, and theoretically slow down enough for them to catch up with you. So I'll show you this in action here. Obviously, instead of starting from the same orbit, I'm just going to go straight into a 75-kilometer orbit here. In fact, I'm going to start now. Because fuck efficiency. Come on, stay level, you bastard. Anyway. So I'm going to get myself into a 75-kilometer orbit. Though, obviously, like I say, if we were in the same orbit as the target, 100 kilometers, it would be best for us to get our periapsis down to 75, say. For the love of fuck. I've done it again. You know, that just keeps happening. Oh well. Luckily, I always have an absolute arse ton of fuel left in this stage when I get to the target. So this shouldn't be too much of a problem. Except for the fact that I seem to be descending. That is a bit of a problem. So yeah, about turning up to the target with loads of fuel. Yeah, that's not going to happen so much. Come on, we want the apoapsis out in front of us. We want to be going back upwards. Thank you. With the apoapsis out in front of us, we can safely accelerate horizontally to get ourselves an orbit of some description. Note to self, pay more attention. Periapsis. Well, we pretty much want it over here. Okay, so the periapsis is 70 kilometers in the air. That makes things a little bit simpler. Though our orbit is now somewhat eccentric. Somewhat. Anyway, let's set the Vinceria as our target. And what I'll do is I'll roll round to the periapsis again and bring the apoapsis down. So what I actually want to do is turn around. RCS. I brought a lot more monopropellant this time round in that massive canister there. Loads of 1,000. The entire reason for bringing it was so that it could refuel the RCS tanks on the station. But of course, to do that, it has to have some RCS left in it when we get there. But, you know, hey. The apoapsis. So obviously, as we're way out here, we're taking ages to get around the planet, so Vinceria here is actually getting away from us. But as soon as we cross over down below, that's when we start going faster. Obviously, in this case, we're only going faster for a small fraction of the orbit in total, so it's still not exactly ideal, but it is at least a sort of demonstration, though it's a bit hard to notice really. The amounts aren't exactly extreme. Do-do-do-do-do. Shortening. So we'll hold there. Wait for the periapsis. And burn. $73 to $65. Not exactly ideal, but you know, better than nothing, I suppose. Let's try swing around. And we'll see what we can do. No, that won't do. Swing around to approximately down. So by the time we get back around to the apoapsis, it'll be forward again. So, boosting around. Ah, well, I was close. Right, 70 to 73. Good enough. We are slightly eccentric from the Vinceria here, but that doesn't really matter that much. So what I'll do now is I'll accelerate time, as fast as it'll go, which isn't very fast, until our little satellite there catches up with the Vinceria. So I'll probably speed up this part of the video, or skip it, so I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Alright guys, we're back. So basically just sat around and waited for a while there until Little Engine Lifter caught up with the Vinceria here. They're currently just over 32 kilometers away from each other. If we go into the normal view, you can see it over there. So then, a few things about orbital maneuvers. They're actually kind of intuitive, to be honest. It's surprising, and okay, they're maybe not that intuitive, but basically when you set something as your target, you get your velocity becomes your velocity relevant to them, and you gain the sort of pink markers that would, in previous versions of the game, they pointed towards and away from KSP, but now they actually point at and away from your target, which is very useful. So right now I'm heading at 55 meters per second relative to my target, and I'm not really getting that much closer. So what I'll do, I'll thrust directly at them. And then quickly as I can, I'll turn around. As you can see, the orbits will now intersect. Our close point is now apparently 8.8 kilometers, which is fine. So I'll know that when we get down to 8.8 kilometers, I can just kill all... Oh yes, that's another thing as well. Your prograde and retrograde markers on the nav ball are, again, relative to your target. So if I were to burn until my speed was 0 using this retrograde marker, I would essentially be frozen in space relative to my target. So that's what I'm going to do. When I get to about 8-9 kilometers, I'm going to burn along this axis here until my speed hits 0, and then from there I can sort of... It's a little bit awkward, but I can sort of basically thrust towards the target, stop, thrust towards them, stop, thrust towards them, stop, getting closer every time. There are more efficient ways to do it. Probably, if you were a bit more skilled, you could probably do it a little bit easier, but I'm doing this the lazy way. let's say about 10 kilometers. So, point towards retrograde and thrust. This now means that, for right now, I'm travelling at roughly the same speed as my target. So that distance meter, 9.7 kilometers, won't change anytime soon. Of course, that doesn't mean that our orbits are perfectly synced up. There is a meeting point, but once we pass that, then obviously we'll separate again. So, next thing to do, point towards them again. And thrust.